Hey friends, I'm Elise and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about my 2026 reading goals. In years past, I haven't really had many goals aside from like a number of books to read. This year I'm intentionally stepping away from the hustle culture of reading. Not so much last year, but I feel like the last few years I have been reading more to quickly get to a specific number. And I didn't really care what I was reading or how I was consuming my reading. So this year I'm leaning into a more quality versus quantity type vibe, slowing down, reading deeper, which is kind of my mantra for this year. So let's talk about goal number 1, which is reading quality over quantity. I don't want to read a book just because it's going to get me closer to that reading goal, because I have found that in doing that, I might gravitate more towards a book that I know I can finish quickly, but I might not enjoy it. Doing a lot of novellas, especially on Amazon. Amazon is notorious for having those novella collections. There's a lot of sci-fi ones. There's been a couple of romance ones, and those are fun, but I'm a bit of a completionist and I feel like I have to read every single one, even if it doesn't sound interesting to me. And then that usually throws off my overall ratings for the year, because I feel like I'm forced to read things that I don't really enjoy. I know that's a me problem, but in order to avoid that, I'm going to try to not do that this year. And I don't want to read a book just because it's really hyped if it doesn't sound like something I'm going to enjoy. I want to choose books more thoughtfully. I have a lot of books on my physical TBR that I need to get through so I can pass them on to somebody else because I certainly do not need to keep as many books on hand as what I have. It's getting a little ridiculous. And I really want to digest what I'm reading. A problem that I've had in the past is listening to a book on audio. I love audiobooks. They can be amazing at times, but I was kind of using audiobooks as a way to feel like I was staying productive when it comes to my reading. So I would pop in an audiobook and clean, walk the dog, run errands, and I wasn't really listening. So I wasn't fully absorbing the story. And there's a lot of books that I was looking back on last year, even the year before, and I'm like, I can't tell you a whole lot about that book because I was not fully present when I was listening to it. Quality over quantity. I'm focused on reading less books, choosing my books that I do read more intentionally, and actually being present with them while I'm reading. Goal number 2 fits in very well with goal number 1, and that is reading deeper, not just consuming. Again, read deeper is kind of my term for 2026, and that's just kind of to remind myself to get past the surface level of a story, really dive into it. I started annotating my books last year only for the books that I was reading for my science fiction book club, Libernauts, and I've found that I really enjoy doing that. I used to be scared to do that because the idea of writing in a book, highlighting in a book, that terrified me. I'm like, I can't do that. But it was actually really fun. I love using colorful tabs and underlining passages that just really resonate with me, and even jotting down some of my thoughts and ideas while I'm reading. I have a few books that I annotated last year that I kind of look back at. I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed my time reading this book. I was in it. Let me grab an example. I grabbed a couple examples. Actually, they're both sci-fi, but only one of them is for Libernauts. The one that was for Libernauts is Glass Houses by Madeline Ashby. And look at all those tabs. And I always try to match them. I'm sure lots of people do this, but I always try to match the colors that I pick with the colors on the cover. But look how many tabs are in here. If I'm enjoying a book, I think taking the time to tab it, jot down my thoughts, highlight things that I want to look back on, it's kind of fun. And it's nice to have when I'm at the end of a journey with a book. And another example is Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. This was actually one of the very first books that I annotated. And again, very color coordinated, match the cover, but I would like to do that more. But another thing that I want to do in order to read deeper is to journal. I think it kind of really helps. Journaling in and of itself is just a very relaxing, therapeutic thing to do, but it also, I think, especially for me, will just help me process my thoughts and my understanding of the story, especially if a book has a really complicated plot or a lot of characters. I think that would just benefit me overall and really improve my reading experience. Goal number 3 is slowing down. I've also been very guilty in the past of blazing through books. Usually when I have an audiobook, because I'm like, I'll just put in my AirPods and go do whatever. But as I mentioned before, I tend to have the habit of not fully being present, not fully paying attention when I'm listening to an audiobook. That's not always the case. I mean, sometimes a book is like that exciting that I'm like, I'm there. but not always. And I mean, it is hard to multitask. I don't care how amazing you think you are at multitasking. It is impossible to give 100% to something when that's not the only thing you're focused on. So for me personally, I don't want to do that anymore this year. I want to slow down. I don't want to rely on an audiobook just to get me through a book quickly, because that has also been something that I have done a lot. That can get expensive. So I think to alleviate both my wallet and my constant need to just get through a book, I want to try to not do that. So then goal number 5 ties in very well with goal number 4 of slowing down, which is at least 50% of the books that I read physically. And what I mean is with my eyes, not relying on an audiobook. That sounds scary to me because certain books, especially if it's like an epic fantasy, if I don't have an audiobook, one, I'm not going to know how to pronounce things. Which I'm terrified of mispronouncing names and words. And 2, in the past, having an audiobook kind of helps keep me on track. But I do find when I read a book physically, just with my eyes, I am absorbing it better. That's just the way my brain processes it. I find that when I have the creativity spark to pick like a fan cast, it's typically books that I'm reading physically without the audiobook. Because when I'm listening to an audiobook, I typically have the speed at like 2, 2.25, 2.5, and that's like too fast for me to process what I'm reading and trying to visualize it enough to identify, to have like a person in my brain for it. Again, that's just me personally. Like if that's something that you are still able to do, listening to an audiobook at 3 times speed, that's amazing. I can't do that. Doing this will help me be more focused and more present with my reading, which is ultimately my overall goal this year. If I end up reading 40 books this year, I will be successful at this goal if 20 of them I read without relying on the audiobook. I think I said that was goal number 5. Reading 50% of my books physically is goal number 4. Goal number 5 is reading 1 nonfiction book a month. I think I start out every year saying I want to read more nonfiction this year. I never really accomplished that. I think most of what I've read as nonfiction has been memoirs, which I do enjoy. But in addition to memoirs, I also want to read about topics so that I can learn. I also want to read about science and history and cultural commentary. I want to grow as a reader. And I think 2 of the biggest ways to do that is to read nonfiction and also read more diversely, which I'll talk about later. Also, if you're a nonfiction reader, what type of books do you enjoy reading? And if you have any recommendations, drop them below because I'm definitely looking to expand that. Goal number 6 is to read more historical fiction. In the past, I usually enjoy historical fiction, almost always, but I haven't read it very much lately. Last year I read 8. I guess the official goal is to read at least 9 historical fiction this year. Then I would be successful with this goal. The only thing that I struggle with is that I got really burnt out on World War II stories because there's a lot of those. Okay, we're almost there. Goal number 7, probably one of the more important ones, is to read more diversely. I always try to do this every year and then I get sucked into the bubble that is current popular books, which unfortunately does not always have the most diverse variety of books. So I want to read more diversely from LGBTQ plus authors from different cultures than me, authors from different countries. It's so important as a reader to expand your understanding of the world and the people in it. So that is going to be a huge focus for me this year. And finally, goal number 8, my overall reading goal is not going to be number of books read, but number of days that I read. This year, I have transitioned fully to Fable. I do still have a Goodreads because it is useful sometimes. And of course, I want to be able to participate in the Goodreads Choice Awards, but my book club Libronauts is over on Fable. I've really grown to love Fable. The graphics that they offer, I love the insights that they provide. I used to really like Storygraph, and I do still like Storygraph, but Fable just a little bit more user-friendly, and it's just really pretty. And I love that, that we can have book clubs over there. So I do exclusively use Fable now, and they have the option of setting your reading goal to days read because you can track, a day that you read, and then you can look back and see how many days out of the year that you read, which month you read the most days. That being said, my goal this year is to read at least 300 days this year. I don't know if that's asking too much of myself. I do have a lot of life changes coming my way. Maybe it's going to be a bit of a challenge for me, but I'm excited to see if I can accomplish that. So those are all my goals for 2026. As a recap, I want to read slower, deeper, more intentionally, focus on quality, not quantity, and really expand my reading by reading more diversely and also picking up more nonfiction this year. If any of this resonates with you, I would love to know. Let me know in the comments what some of your goals are this year. Thank you so much for being here, and until next time, bye.